So a little bit about me. I've been on staff for coming up on 6 years. I've been at New Life for 20 years. The person I intend to spend my dying days with is back in the tech booth. His name is Roger, and he helps out with slides. I call him my rocket scientist. I'm going to have them put up a slide of the family slide. Show you a little bit. So that's Roger and I. We were with Lance and Mary Nell in Hawaii 2 years ago. We got, small fun fact, Lance and Mary Nell and Roger and I got married same day, same year, with the time calculations across the country probably the same time. So that first one is us on our anniversary in Hawaii. The middle one is our daughter, which some of you might be going, wait a minute, she has a boy. I'll explain that later. That's our daughter. And then her family, our daughter, our son-in-law, and our little guy, who I can't just put one picture up. Put the next slide up. This is Liam. He's our grandson. He's going to be 10 on May 5th. And he is kind of, John was talking about the grandparents that have the trunk explode with the gifts. That's why we do it. Our son-in-law is Hunter. He is a competitive tennis player. You might have seen he's in a wheelchair. He is officially a quadriplegic. He plays in the international and the U.S. tennis leagues, and he is a ranked player. So we are tennis parents. That's one of the things that we do. Other things we do. I call Roger my rocket scientist. He is an astronomer and loves it. I do not, because that's late at night and outside. Trying to think, what are the other things that I can share with you? Like Mary Nell said, we are very close, very best friends, and I'll explain to you how we got there, because it's going to tie into the message tonight. So Shawnee talked about, I'm sorry, it's just what I call you, Shawnee. I know. Sean spoke a couple of weeks ago. He spoke a couple weeks ago about anxiety and depression and fear. And I just kind of want to follow up on that. It was a great topic. I know that all of us in here at some point or another have struggled with all of those at some point, if we are not doing so right now. When he asked who struggled with anxiety and depression, I was one of those that raised my hand. Full disclosure, I actually take medication for it, because even though I address those fears, and even though I address the situations in my life, there's just something in my brain chemicals that says, nope, we're not doing that. So I want to let you know that as a person who's middle-aged, you can call me old if you want to, like, there comes a place when you're dealing with mental health that you may have to get a little bit of help, and that is okay. So he talked about one of the things that drives anxiety and depression is fear. Well, fear is another driver of stress. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight, is stress, and how God puts people in our lives to help us with the stressful situations of life, right? And so fear, anxiety, depression can cause stress. The inverse is also true. Stress can cause fear and anxiety and depression. So throw out to me some of the things that might be stressful for you in your lives right now. It's cool. Wrestling. Sasquatch. Okay. Oh. That stressed me out. Yeah. Yeah. That's boys, girls, friends, parents, kids. My parents stress me out, so, you know. So let's talk about stress. One of the ways that I can definitely relate to you on stress is school. I started a double master's program last fall because I thought that would be a good idea at my age. So these are my books for this semester. 2 classes. That stresses me out, right? I can look at that and go, like, there's a part of that on days and I look And I feel it in here. I can't breathe. I say to myself, why am I doing this? I am not smart enough to do this. What made me think I could do this? I'm too old. In the particular seminary that I'm in, I'm a girl. That doesn't fly too high. But I have friends that have said for several years, it took me several years to get to this place. I have friends, and several of them are in here with you guys, who said, no, you can do that, and God is calling you to do that. And we are going to be here to walk through the stress of that with you. We're going to carry that with you. Because that's what friends do, right? And God put those friends and those people in our lives to help us get through those situations. I'm going to put the weird friends up there. Some of you are in this. Some of the kids are in this. So weird friends will take your phone and leave random photos on your phone, and even teach your grandson to leave random photos on your phone. The next one is the friends slide. Friends will get you through hard times. They will run 5Ks with you when you decide that's what you want to do. They will have teas for you when you're going through one of the hardest times of your life. They'll support you when you go to India and are in a country where you have no idea which way is up and which way is down. And if we are lucky, the saying goes, if you're lucky to have 5 close friends when you are at the end of your life, you are blessed indeed. So go to the next slide, the bestie slide. This woman, she is somebody that I actually count as, next to my husband, my closest friend. And how we got there was through bearing one another's burdens. And again, as we go, I'm going to talk about that. Friendships are hard, right? Being with people can be hard. Being willing to be vulnerable and to share ourselves, that's hard. We develop good relationships and friends when we have people that can speak into our lives, that we trust, that we are willing to take maybe some correction from, that we're willing to step into places that we don't want to show anybody else, but we're okay with them doing that. And so our friendships only go as deep as we allow somebody to enter into our lives. You might be struggling right now, and you might be feeling like you're the only person going through that. But I promise you, you're not. And if you have a friend that you can bring into that with you, A, you're going to be blessed by that. But B, they're going to get the blessing of helping you. That is what people are who Jesus uses, our friends Jesus uses to speak truth and to speak his love into us. And again, I understand some of you might be going, yeah, I don't want to let anybody in. Totally get that. But we are called to do so. In Galatians, Paul speaks this to the church. He says in chapter 6, verse 2, he says, bear each other's burdens, and in this way, obey the law of Christ. So do you hear that? When we bear one another's burdens, we're actually taking on and obeying the law of Christ. One of the greatest laws of Christ. It's to love the Lord God with all your mind, heart, and soul. And the second one is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. Your friends are your neighbors, right? Your neighbors are your neighbors. Your parents are your neighbors. Now, I know not all of you are going to share your deepest, darkest secret with your parents, because who wants to do that? But they will listen. I know you might not be there yet, but I promise they will listen. We are made in such a way that we need connection with others. We can't go through life, we can't go through hardships without having someone else alongside of us. How many of you have ever tried to get through something that was so hard, but you didn't want to share it with anybody, and it just made the situation harder? Anyone? Yep. Example. I'm going to do a girly example, okay? Changing a tire. Now, I'm at a stage in life where AAA is a wonderful thing, right? But when I was younger and I was a single mom, I was bound and determined to prove that I was independent and I could do it, and I was going to change this flat tire. And all it did is and I knew how to change a flat tire. That was part of I couldn't get my driver's license unless I could change a flat tire, change my oil, gap a spark plug, and change the clutch. That was the rule in our house. So I knew how to change a flat tire, but this was not working today. And I was bound and determined I wasn't gonna ask for help. So I struggled and I suffered in the heat of Arizona trying to change a tire until someone pulled over and said, "Can I help you?" I let them in. I let them help me, and they were gracious and lovely and did not make me feel any less than. So that's kind of what God does. He puts people in our world and in our lives to help us out where we need with the stresses. You know what that does? It starts to bring down the anxiety. It starts to bring down the depression. It starts to bring down the stress. We need each other. I'll be honest with you, sometimes people scare me, and I'm sure that they scare you. I'm afraid to let them in. I'm afraid they'll reject me. I'm afraid I might say something stupid and they're gonna go talk about me to other people. I'm afraid of what they'll think. I'm afraid of what they're gonna tell other people and what those people will think. What I'm doing is I'm writing the story in my head, because I don't know that any of those things are gonna happen. You don't know that any of those things are gonna happen, but we use that fear to hold us back from stepping into friendships, to hold us back from deepening the friendships that we have. The surface of the ocean looks really pretty, but when we don't know what's underneath, it can be scary. It's the same thing with friends, right? Our surface friends, we can have fun, we can party, we can laugh, we can joke, but it's what's under the surface that's going to allow us to grow deeper to each other. Fear of people was so important that Solomon addressed it in Proverbs. God addresses it in his word. It says, fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety. That's in Proverbs 29:25. When we fear sharing ourselves with others, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we're not perfect, right? We do have ugly inside of us. We step into the mindset that we think we can handle everything on our own. Like I just said, there's the simple tire changing thing. We think that we can do it all on our own, that we have the power to do it, we'll get through, we'll muddle through because I don't want anybody else thinking bad of me, therefore I'm just gonna do it. And I'm telling you right now, that is a hard pass. You cannot do it on your own. So I'm gonna use these books as a visual. I need two people to come up here and help me. Jake, Nick, yep, here we go. All right, so let's say, I'm gonna scream. Okay, so if I try and do this, oh, look, see, one already fell. I tried, no, I'm just trying to carry them by myself. Okay. I'm just trying to carry these books by yourself. This is my burden, and I don't want you to know about it, because I don't want to share it with anybody. I want you to think that I can do it on my own, but I can't. But if I have friends to help me carry this, I'll give you a couple. And then I have a couple. They're helping to share the burden, right? And this is a super simple visual, but, sorry, Jake, you got the heavy ones. But that's what our burdens are like, right? They're like this pile of school books. Okay, you guys can stack them up there. They're like these pile of school books. I need help to carry this. I need help for people to encourage me to say, stick with it. This fall was brutal when I said, I had a 15-page research paper to do. I've got another one to do this semester too. But it's that encouragement of you can do it. Or it's the people that will step into your life. I'm gonna be like Mary Nell. Lance and Mary Nell edited my paper. It's that stepping into the place where I am vulnerable enough with them to say, can you read this and can you tell me what's wrong and what's right and what needs to be improved? And them knowing that they have the safety to say that to me, and I'm not gonna get offended, I'm not gonna take it personal. I just want the A, right? So I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take their guidance of what is best and what will help. You can do that too. Don't hide your burdens. People are gonna know something's wrong anyway, because guess what? We all get cranky, spicy, sassy when we're carrying burdens on our own. It's hard. No one likes to do that. We're trying to put up a front, we're putting on this mask, and that spice and that sass comes out. You don't believe me? I'm gonna come to your house and ask your parents. They'll tell me how your sass comes out. Takes some bravery to share things with people. Takes bravery to open up and ask someone to come into your world and to speak truth and love to you. On the flip side, if you're that person speaking truth and love into someone, you don't get to approach it as you're right and they're wrong. You approach it with love. You approach it with grace. You approach it with truth. And you approach it with the idea that you're gonna sit with them and you're gonna go through whatever it is they're going through, and you're gonna help them. You're not just gonna vomit your words on them to say, this is what you should do, and walk away. No, true friends say, all right, I'm gonna put on my hip waders, and I'm gonna step into the mud and the muck with you, and we'll go through it together. We're not alone. So I'm gonna share about a time, this will really tell you kind of how Mary Nell and my relationship solidified, also my relationship with Maureen. You can put PJ's slide up there. There we go. This is our son, Patrick Joseph. And he was 32 in 2017 when he died after fighting cancer for 18 months. That is not the way we planned our life as parents. How he came into this world is a whole other story, and I'll share that some other time. But he is still our pride and joy. Parents are not supposed to bury their children. Children are supposed to bury their parents. It's upside down when it happens any other way. In that process, in that 18 months of going through him being sick and battling this really brutal cancer, I lived my life in such a way, and I'm pretty sure, especially Maureen, I think she could speak to this because she was in the midst of that at the time too with me. I sure did put on a good act of having it all together. I was an advocate for his health at the hospital. I made all of he eventually had to be on a feeding tube, and I was bound and determined to make all of his tube food from scratch. And so I did that. I did all of these things. Sean talked about this a couple weeks ago. I needed to be in control. I held on so tight that I was trying to control everything. I didn't want anybody else to know that I was falling apart on the inside. And there was sass and there was spice. There was a lot of words that you shouldn't say. Let's just say that. And it wasn't till after he died, 3 months later was when I broke. And I had friends. You saw all the slides of the friends. I had friends that were going through this. I had a group of prayer warriors, women who just rallied around me and helped me get through. But I wasn't being fully vulnerable with them because there were times that I wouldn't tell them I needed help. I think there was one time that people just needed to show up at the house because there was no way I was going to say I needed help. And they did. They came over and they cleaned our house and they brought food and all of that. But that's me as an adult saying, I have this all under control and I don't need anybody else. And that was the biggest, fattest lie I was telling myself. Well, the same year, 3 months after PJ passed away, Lance's accident happened. And it was through that accident that Mary Nell and I, we knew each other, but it's like the floodgates open it. Because I'm not sure if you know this, but Mary Nell is also a control freak. I love you, but that's the truth. But I think when we both could get to that place of, I need you to step into my dark and ugly pit, and I'm going to step into your dark and ugly pit. That once that happened, there wasn't a whole lot that we weren't willing to say to each other, because we knew if you could stick it out through the darkest times, you're not going anywhere. Mary Nell has spoken correction into me several times concerning a relationship with my parents. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't want to hear what she had to say, but I listened, and she was right. And that's just another way that we get drawn closer to our friends, right? When we can say to someone, I see that you're hurting, I'm gonna step in, how can I help? Can I just stand here and be with you? I'll stand here and be with you. Do you want me to go fight someone? I'll go fight someone. Maureen and I have had that conversation, like, I hold my earrings, I will throat punch someone for you. I'm not advocating fighting. I'm just saying that God puts people in our lives for a reason, to help with those stresses, to help diffuse those stresses, to help diffuse when you do want to throw a punch. Your friend is going to be there to say, let's not do that. We don't want to go to jail today, okay? You see, I thought I could handle it, and I couldn't. That was stress. Jesus even leaned on people in his stress. So we look at the crucifixion, and we see him on the cross. He's hanging there, and he looks down, and he sees his mom. And of all the things that had to have been on his heart and his mind, his mom was his concern. And he needed someone to step into his life to help share those burdens. And so he looks at John, and he says, this is your mother. And the passage is in, I think it's Matthew. Yeah, Matthew 19. Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. And when Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, dear woman, here's your son. And he said to this disciple, here is your mother. And from then on, this disciple, John, took his mother, and she became John's mother. He cared for her. He took care of her. John stepped in and bore a burden that Jesus said, I need your help with. Take care of my mom. We can see two things in that passage. Jesus is leaning into another person, and he's there to give us the biggest gift of all, and that's our salvation, right? So the bottom line that I want you to hear today is you need people, and people need you. You see it all the way through the Bible. You see it in history. And you get to provide that stress relief for somebody, from texts to phone calls, if anybody still makes phone calls, to emails, to hugs, to encouragement, and even to counsel. Don't do this. Hey, you might need to apologize for that. You've been given people in your life, your family, your friends, maybe even those that you aren't quite friends with yet. So I want to encourage you to step out of maybe some discomfort and some fear of people and take a next step to make your relationships and your friendships just a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. I promise you it will be worth it. I'm going to pray over you. Worship team is going to come up, and they're going to lead us in a final song. There are 3 questions you're going to discuss when you go into your small groups. One of them is, I want you to be thinking about, have you been able to help someone else carry their burdens and their stresses? And what does that look like? What did that look like? Have you been able to trust God enough with someone to help you with your stress? Are you able to let somebody in and be vulnerable with them? And what is one step you can take this week? I know it's a short week at school. What is one step you can take this week to trust God more with the things that you are worried and stressed about? Because when we can lean into that, we can lighten up the stress and the anxiety and the depression. So let me pray for you. God, we thank you that we have other people in our lives. We thank you for the ones that you have chosen for each one of us. Lord, would you help us to open up to them? Would you help us to be a little less fearful of the people in our world so that we can be honest and open and share our struggles and our hurts? But God, more than that, so that we can also step into their lives and share their struggles and hurts. I thank you for each one of these students. I thank you for the families that they represent. Lord, would you bless them? Would you give them a great night ahead? Open up their discussions in their small group. Lord, give them a fantastic week. And more than anything else, God, would you let them know how much you love them? We honor and we love you and we praise you. In your holy name, amen.